Hello, Earthlings. How are you today? Good morning. Welcome to First Contact Radio. Hope your day is going to be filled with all kind of wonderful things. All right, we're going to start things off as always with our dream spell date for today, our calendar date for today. Today is called the Red Solar Dragon. Red Solar Dragon. Now, on this dream spell calendar, remember I told you this is a calendar system that works according to nature. And there are differences in this calendar than the Gregorian calendar. One is the synchronicity, or the regular patterns and intervals that occur. In the Gregorian calendar, there's 30 days, 31 days, sometimes 28, 29. This calendar, every month, has exactly the same amount of time, 28 days. And during those days, there's a rotation of 4 colors: red, white, blue, and then yellow, and then back to red again. The reason there's a rotation of colors is each one of these is a progression, so that way it's kind of like a calendar that lives, because every day you can see a different way that the energy moves. So today is a red color day. Red has a meaning to it. It means initiation. So whenever there's a red color day on the calendar, it means it's like an initiation point of the day of that energy. So today's about the dragon. The dragon is an energy of birth. So today the energy out there that we're looking at is an energy that talks about the idea of birth, of beginnings, of nurturing of something. And the symbol, or the seal for today, the tone for today is the 9 tone. And there are 13 tones. These represent the 13 moon tones that are given off during the course of a year, but we also look at them on a daily basis as well, because every day it moves from one number to the next number. So today is a 9-tone day, and 9 tones are tones that are called, it's called the solar tone of intention. And then every day there's a kin, which is the symbol for the day. And today's kin is the dragon. The dragon is about birth. And then you have a guide energy for the day, and the guide for today is the earth, which is all about navigation. So you put it all together, and what's cool about this system is every day has a unique name to it. So instead of today being, it's November 10th on the Gregorian calendar, with this calendar the name has a particular day. It's called the Red Solar Dragon Day. And it's a day where it tells you, gives you an idea of how this energy is moving for today. So when you look out, instead of just seeing a calendar that has no meaning at all, you look at this calendar and you see that there's a purpose with the day. And the purpose is all, remember, it's coded and by the moon and the sun and the natural order out there that the great creator has, made for us. So, Red Solar Dragon, guided by the earth. The phrase for today is, I pulse in order to nurture realizing being. I seal the input of birth with the solar tone of intention. I am guided by the power of navigation. And on the Gregorian calendar, it is Thursday, November 10th, 2011. One thing that I like about this calendar system, not only is it a natural system, but it gives you ideas to think about. Today being the solar tone of intention, it gets you thinking about what is that idea of intention. What is that about? That when we intend to do something, we put our intentions out into the world. It brings up ideas that are much more than just November 10th. November 10th doesn't tell us anything, but Red Solar Dragon kind of gives us an idea and gets us to think about some principles that are part of life that are important. And when we think about these things, it helps us to raise our consciousness, because we're starting to think in ways out of the box. And that's the whole idea with this, to look at a system that helps us to think out of the box a bit. All right? So that's our date for today. Now, I'm going to start things off. Dirk Bradshaw's not with us today, but we have other news and information we're going to get to. And I'm going to start things off with some highlights of Ron Paul from the debate that took place last night. So here we go. Over to Ron Paul.
Congressman Ron Paul. And Governor Congressman Paul.
I've heard what you have to say, and I really get that, but I'm on the front lines of the stock market. We were down 400 points today. We're not going to be done going down if this keeps going up. If Italy the rates keep going up, surely you must recognize that this is a moment-to-moment situation for people who have 401ks and IRAs on the line, and you wouldn't just let it fail. Just go away and take our banking system with it.
No, you have to let it liquidate. We took 40 years to build up this worldwide debt. We're in a debt crisis never seen before in our history. The sovereign debt of this world is equal to the GDP as ours is in this country. If you prop it up, you'll do exactly what we did in the Depression, prolong the agony. If you prop it up, you do what Japan has done for 20 years. So yes, you want to liquidate the debt. The debt is unsustainable. And this bubble was predictable because 40 years ago we had no restraints whatsoever on the monetary authorities, and we piled debt on debt, we pyramided debt, we had no restraints on the spending, and if you keep bailing people out and prop it up, you just prolong the agony as we're doing in the housing bubble. Right now, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are demanding more money because we don't allow the market to determine what these mortgages are worth. If you don't liquidate this and clear the market, believe me, you're going to perpetuate this for a decade or two more, and that is very, very dangerous.
Ron Paul, you have said you want to close down agencies. Tell us about your tax plan as well as closing agencies, federal agencies. Where do those jobs go?
Well, eventually they go into the private sector. They don't all leave immediately when the plan goes into the effect. But what my plan does is it addresses taxes in a little different way. We're talking about the tax code, but that's the consequence, that's the symptom. The disease is spending. Every time you spend, spending is a tax. We tax the people, we borrow, and then we print the money, and the prices go up, and that is a tax. So you have to address the subject of spending. That is the tax. That is the reason I go after the spending. I propose in the first year, cut $1 trillion out of the budget in 5 departments. Now, the other thing is that you must do if you want to get the economy going again is you have to get rid of price fixing. And the most significant price fixing that goes on that gave us the bubble, destroyed the economy, and is preventing this from coming out is the price fixing of the Federal Reserve manipulating interest rates way below market rates. You have to have the market determine interest rates if you want a healthy, viable economy.
So you think the economy would be stronger if interest rates were higher right now?
You would have more incentive. You would take care of the elderly. They get cheated. They get nothing for their CDs. Why cheat them and give the banks loans at 0%, and then they loan it back to the government at 3%? They're ripping us off at the expense of those on fixed incomes and the retirees.
Even though higher interest rates would make it much more expensive to borrow mortgages, borrow.
But what you want is the market to determine this. Whoever thought that one person, the Federal Reserve Board chairman, knows what the money supply should be? Just in the past 6 months, M1 has gone up at the rate of 30%. That spells inflation, that spells lower standard of living and higher prices, and watch out, they're coming. Yep. We need to get the government out of the business, and we do need to have the right to opt out of Obamacare, but we ought to have the right to opt out of everything, and the answer to it is turn it back over to the patient and the doctor relationship with medical savings accounts. So I would say that we've had too much government. I've been in medicine. It's gone downhill. Quality has gone down. Prices have skyrocketed because of the inflation, so you need to get a market force in there, but medical savings account. But this mess has been created, it's a bipartisan mess, so it's been there for a while. So what we need is the doctor-patient relationship and medical savings account where you can deduct it from your taxes and get a major medical policy. Prices then would come down.
30 seconds.
Congressman?
My plan of cutting the budget by $1 trillion does deal with Medicaid, and that is that it preserves it, and there is a transition period with a goal that eventually we would hope to move that back into the economy, but right now it would be too much to do it in 1 year. You know, finding $1 trillion was a job and a half, and getting rid of five departments. So, yes, my budget takes into consideration health care for the elderly, health care on Medicaid, as well as child health care. At the same time, we deal with the bailouts, the banks, and all the benefits that they get from the financial system. Because what we're facing today is the crisis, and this housing crisis. If I could just have 1 second on that. We face the housing crisis once again because it's price fixing. They're fixing the prices of these mortgages too high, and this is why nobody will buy them. This is why you have to get rid of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, sell all of that into the marketplace. And the reason they do this is to prop up the banks, because the banks have invested in Europe. They've invested in the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and these credit default swaps. They're in big trouble, and that is why they're getting bailed out, and that's why they're not allowing these mortgages to go down, and that is why we will most likely bail out Europe, which will be a real tragedy.
Congressman, thank you for that. It's time for a quick break.
Hold it. Attention to why we're here on this campus and what many students are very interested in, and that is the fact that, Congressman Paul, right now we are looking at student loan debt that is near $1 trillion. Americans owe more on student loans right now than credit cards, and the average debt for a college senior right now is over $25,000. It's obviously a very hot topic right here on this campus and with students across the country. Just listen to what they have to say.
Tuition rates have increased roughly 3 times that of inflation over the last 3 decades.
More students have to take out loans or forego college.
My generation is graduating with student debt levels at an unprecedented level.
So, Congressman Paul, you've already talked about the fact that you want to get rid of the Department of Education. You've said that you want to get rid of federal student loans. So how would you make college more accessible, more affordable for these students and students around the country?
Well, I think you proved that the policy of student loans is a total failure. I mean, $1 trillion of debt, and it's going to be dumped on the taxpayer. And what have they gotten? A poor education, and costs that have skyrocketed because of inflation, and they don't have jobs. There's nothing more dramatically failing than that program. So, no, there is no authority in the Constitution for the federal government to be dealing with education. We should get rid of the loan programs. We should get rid of the Department of Education and give tax credits if you have to help people. But the inflation is the big problem. It's 3 times the rate that the government admits inflation is, and that is natural and normal. When governments inflate the currency, it goes in the areas that the government gets involved in. Housing, high prices cut. Stock market, skyrocketing prices. Medical care, skyrocketing. Education.
How do they pay for it? How do they now pay for college if they're not?
The way you pay for cell phones and computers. You have the marketplace there. There's competition. Quality goes up, the price goes down. Can you imagine what it would have been like if the Department of Homeland Security was in charge of finding one person or one company to make the cell phones? I mean, it would have been a total disaster. So when the government gets involved in the delivery of any service, whether it's education, medical care, or housing, they cause higher prices, lower quality, create bubbles, and they give us this mess that we're in. That's why we have to eventually get we have to wise up and look at where the bubbles come from. It's from the Federal Reserve, and we should start by auditing the Fed, and then we should end the Fed.
Congressman. Thank you, Congressman. Speaker Gingrich.
Congressman Paul, Governor Perry was just talking about the culture of Washington. His critics in the state of Texas, your congressman from Texas, say crony capitalism is what he's practiced as governor. Are they right?
I haven't analyzed it well enough to call him a crony or not, so no. I don't know the details of that, but there is a lot of crony capitalism going on in this country, and that has to be distinguished from real capitalism, because that's this occupation stuff on Wall Street. If you're going after crony capitalism, I'm all for it. And those are the people who benefit from contracts from government, benefits from the Federal Reserve, benefits from all the bailouts. They don't deserve compassion. They deserve taxation, or they deserve to have all their benefits removed. But Crony capitalism isn't when somebody makes money and they produce a product. That is very important. We have to distinguish the two, and unfortunately, I think some people mix that. But this, to me, is so vital that we recognize what capitalism is versus crony capitalism, and believe me, when you have an inflationary environment and all this speculation and all the bailouts due to the monetary system, believe me, you get a majority of crony capitalism, and that's why we're facing this crisis today.
We want to thank all of you tonight.
What if our government was responsible for some of the greatest crimes against this nation? Would you really want to know? These are big questions, but these questions deserve answers. It's time to demand the truth.
People shouldn't be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid.
9/11 was an inside job. Kennedy was killed by the CIA. Jimmy Carter saw UFO. Answers to secrets you need to know. So wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. The evidence is overwhelming. Step past your fear, take a look. Illuminati lies keep growing, but they're illusion from your eyes. And wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. What would our founding fathers say if they were alive today? Must be turning in their graves. Redcoats are coming, Big Brother's watching. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. What if I land and two if I see? And I on the opposite shore will be ready to ride and spread the alarm through every Middlesex village and farm. Whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. When a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Patriots arise. It's time to demand the truth.
Next up on the Cosmic News Network, it's the UFO News with Joshua Poet.
All right, Dirk, thank you very much. This is the UFO News for today. I've got 4 stories for you. First one comes to us from Louisiana. It's a YouTube user, Bright Real UFOs 2009 is the name here. It says Bright UFO in the southern sky of Louisiana, and this took place just yesterday on the 9th. So let me play this for you. All right, so we're going to see, you can see it right up there. Just sitting there, and as you can see, it does a little bit of moving around. There you go. Alright, let's move over a little bit. Now that's not the moon. we go. That was seen over the skies of Louisiana the other day. Now, our next story comes to us from educatinghumanity.com. Educatinghumanity.com. Now, we hear a lot about UFO sightings all the time. We report them. A lot of the times, it is mistaken identity for some sort of craft. We have a lot of stealth-type craft in the military now. So this is some of the craft that are out there. It says the CIA, these are 7 spy and stealth craft that could be mistaken for UFOs. The CIA estimates that more than half of the UFOs reported in the 50s and 60s were really American spy planes. Here are 7 no longer secret aircraft that people have mistaken for extraterrestrial flying saucers. Spy and stealth planes, some with bizarre bat-shaped wings, others with triangular silhouettes that imply otherworldly designs, have long generated UFO sightings and lore. And official denials feed rumors that the government isn't telling us about alien ships. The CIA estimates that over half of the UFOs reported from the 50s through the 60s were U-2 and SR-71 spy planes. At the time, the Air Force misled the public and the media to protect these Cold War programs. It's possible the government's response to current sightings of classified craft, whether manned or remotely operated, are equally evasive. The result is an ongoing source of UFO reports and conspiracy theories. Here are the Earth-built craft that likely have lit up the 9/11 switchboards over the years. Okay, this is the X-47B. It reached a new milestone for futuristic new stealth drone when it successfully retracted its landing gear and flew in cruise configuration for the first time, engineers announced Tuesday. Okay, now we got this one here. This is the UAV. It's manufactured by Lockheed Martin Boeing. First test flight was 1996. It's 15 feet long with a 69-foot wingspan. Cruising speed is 288 miles per hour and a max altitude of 45,000 feet. Now our next one here is the U-2 spy plane. This was developed in 1957 to present, and it was first deployed in 1955. Then we go here to the unnamed tailless spy plane. This was made by Lockheed Martin. 1964 was when it was first test flight. And then we have the classified hybrid airship. It's kind of like a combination of a blimp ship, it looks like. And then down here we have the F-117A. We have the B-2 bomber. It's a long-range stealth fighter. Manufactured by Northrop Grumman. First test flight was in 1989. So as you can see, there's a number of different types of craft out there that people do see in the sky and sometimes mistake for UFOs. And it is certainly important to know the difference because, you know, like I said, there are a lot of different sightings out there. A lot of them are planes or things that can be explained, but it is always that small percentage, I think it's about 5% now, that is unexplainable. And that's the part that the UFO researchers are most interested in, those type of things. Now, most recently, the government, White House to be specific, has come out with a statement that there isn't any UFOs, there's no proof of or evidence of UFOs, nothing of that sort. And of course, we know that the government is lying to us, as they always do. For whatever reason they choose to keep this private, they do. But here is a clip I'm going to play for you, and this is Buzz Aldrin talking about a UFO encounter. Buzz Aldrin, for those of you who don't remember or are not up on your history, was one of the astronauts that was on the mission that went to the moon. Whether or not they landed there, that's a whole nother story. But he was one of these astronauts on there. Let's listen to this.
About 3 days and 200,000 miles into the flight, Mission Control did miss the significance of a cryptic message from the astronauts.
Do you have any idea where the U-4B is with respect to us? Stand by.
information on the current position of the S-4B, the final stage of the rocket which had been jettisoned away 2 days earlier. This short message hid an extraordinary turn of events. Apollo 11 wasn't alone in space.
There was something out there that was close enough to be observed, and what could it be?
Traveling alongside Apollo 11 was a mysterious object, like this one filmed in a later mission. If the object wasn't part of Apollo's rocket, it could be only one thing: a UFO.
Mike decided he thought he could see it in the telescope, and he was able to do that. And when it was in one position, that it had a series of ellipses. But when you made it real sharp, it was sort of L-shaped. That didn't tell us very much.
NASA knew very little about the object reported by the Apollo 11 crew. It was obviously an unidentified flying object, but such objects were not uncommon, and the history of even Earth orbit space flights going back over the previous years indicated that several crews saw objects.
Despite having a clear view of the UFO, the crew were wary of reporting it to Mission Control.
Now, obviously, the three of us were not going to blurt out, "Hey, Houston, we got something moving alongside of us, and we don't know what it is. You know, can you tell us what it is?" We weren't about to do that, because we know that those transmissions would be heard by all sorts of people, and who knows what somebody would have demanded that we turn back because of aliens or whatever the reason is. So we didn't do that, but we did decide we just cautiously ask Houston, how far away was the S-4B?
Unaware of the drama unfolding in space, Mission Control radioed the position back to Apollo 11.
Apollo 11, Houston, the S-4B is about 6,000 nautical miles from you now, over.
And a few moments later, they came back and said something like it was 6,000 miles away because of the maneuver. So we really didn't think we were looking at something that far away. So we decided that after a while of watching it, it was time to go to sleep and not to talk about it anymore until we came back in debriefing.
To this day, whatever it was the crew saw has never been positively identified or officially acknowledged.
All right, so the astronauts on Apollo 11 saw something, but the White House says that there's no evidence. See how it works? One hand doesn't know what the other hand is doing. Now, our last story comes to us from ToledoBlade.com. ToledoBlade.com says, man uses love of space to investigate UFO reports. Clevelander describes work as a volunteer. By Gabriel Russin. All right, Tom Wertman was fascinated when he was a youth by B-grade movies and books about outer space. I was one of those kids who was fascinated by science fiction, Mr. Wertman said. It's just my nature, my major fascination. Can we go out into space? Now 57, Mr. Wertman channels his love of science into investigating reports of alleged UFO sightings for the Mutual UFO Network of Ohio and the Cleveland Ufology Project. Recently, he's been on the library circuit talking with community members about the volunteer work that he does for the two groups. Last week, he addressed a crowd at Rossford Public Libraries about UFOs. I'm not out to convince them either way. All I do is present the facts, Mr. Wertman said. It's up to individuals to make their own opinions about what we talk about. Each year, he investigates about 80 reports, primarily from central and southern Ohio, filed by residents who have seen something they cannot explain. One was the strange lights weaving in the sky above Cincinnati area on July 4, 2010 and 11. The bewildered contact Mr. Wertman's agencies for answers. Mr. Wertman said about 70% of the time he's able to determine a logical explanation. In Cincinnati, for instance, skydivers had pyrotechnics strapped onto their ankles as they flew above a stadium. Rich reported the odd lights in the sky that 7 people reported. In another incident, a Toledo resident reported weird lights in the sky a year ago. But by determining what direction the lights were moving and then studying the flight path at the Toledo Express Airport, Mr. Wertman said the lights most likely were a plane or some type of activity at the airport. Other times, things get more bizarre. For instance, talking to people who swear they were abducted by aliens. Are they dreaming? Are they imagining things? Or is something happening to them, said Mr. Wertman, who lives in the Cleveland suburbs and teaches math and computer programming at Kaplan Higher Education. Did they have some experience you can't explain? Mr. Wertman's reports are completed within 90 days, and he contacts people to let them know what his findings are. Most of the people are open-minded, he said. They just want to know what they saw. All right. And that is our UFO news for today. I want to jump away for a moment. I'll be right back.
You know that more people get news and information now from alternative media like First Contact with Joshua Poet. It's now becoming a legitimate form of news and information. And that's important. And Joshua Poet takes it very seriously. And every one of these stories is heavily researched before it goes out there, so that it's guaranteed to have nothing but the truth.
All right, Dirk, thank you very much. All right, we're going to jump now over into our space weather for today. However, I do want to make a comment. You know, yesterday we were talking, or actually not just yesterday, but for a while we were talking about this asteroid that was coming in, a lot of to-do about what was going to happen, and it ended up being not really a lot of anything. We'll get to that in a moment. Solar wind for today is 368 kilometers per second. Our planetary K index is low. We go down here and we look at our chance of M-class flares are pretty high, 70% chance. X-class flares have gone up to 10%, and very low chance that we're going to have some geomagnetic storm. Now, back over to here. We had done a lot of talk about this object, 2005 YU-55, that was going to pass by the other day, and it did. It passed by. We had heard all the stories of what possibly was going to happen. There was some speculation it was going to hit the moon. This was tied in with the big emergency broadcast that was done across the country the other day. That thing seemed to be somewhat of an epic fail, because there was a lot of places that really didn't have any broadcast whatsoever. So the attempt to try to connect the whole country via emergency system really didn't play itself out the way it did. I know out here in Los Angeles, I was in the car at the time and listening to the radio, and at that time I flipped through several stations and I didn't hear one announcement anywhere. So they certainly weren't using the radio as they said they were going to be doing. And there were a lot of places that, you know, just didn't have anything at all, or it would be on momentarily. Some people said they would see a message and they heard Lady Gaga singing. Others heard people talking about Obama. So it was kind of a, you know, what was the results? You know, what was the whole game that was going on with this? All that's yet to be determined. But it certainly seemed as if their efforts to connect the whole country through an emergency system really didn't play out in the way they thought it did. And as far as what's going on out in the drills, we haven't heard about any tsunamis that have gone live, so they're obviously still doing their exercises, and they're still doing it today, so we'll see how things play out. If it is related to this asteroid, then the fact that they're out there would indicate that they're still, you know, looking for this thing to be passing by, and after today it should be gone without any challenges or worries at all. So there you have it on that report. Now, next story I'm going to go to is about 9/11. And there's a lot of talk about 9/11, all different sides. You have those who believe heavily in the subject and what's going on, and then you have those who really can't grasp the idea that there was anything more than the government story. However, there's a lot of flaws to the government story. By now, you should have had the opportunity to look at the information, because the information is just overwhelming. It doesn't really take any great effort to go and dig up some information and start to read, start to watch the videos, start to understand the science that is presented and is part of this whole 9/11 conspiracy. It truly was a conspiracy. It does need a new investigation because the government story does not stand up to scrutiny at all. Now, I know that there are those agencies and magazines and media that want to support it, but they're not being very honest with you. So, in the spirit of all of this, I'm going to play this entire clip. It's 20 minutes long here, and it's from Architects and Engineers for Truth. But you need to hear this because this talks about the psychological dealings that people go through in understanding the 9/11 mystery. So let's go over to here. All right, here we go. Psychologist on coping with 9/11 truth.
Most of us who have lived with the events of 9/11 have, as a result, experienced some kind of trauma. It can be very difficult to come to terms with what actually happened at the World Trade Center. In fact, someone told me recently, "I wouldn't believe what you're telling me even if it were true." Our petition signers with psychological expertise have stepped forward to offer their insight. While this segment is clearly outside the knowledge base of the architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth, these experts in psychology highlight their valuable experience for us as to why this evidence can still be so difficult for people to accept.
At this point, we have 9 years of hard scientific evidence that disproves a government theory about what happened on September 11th, and yet people continue to be either oblivious to the fact that this information exists or completely resistant to looking at this information. So the question becomes why? Why is it that people have so much trouble hearing this information? From my work, I think we would be remiss not to look at the impact of trauma. My name is Marty Hopper, and I'm a PhD clinical psychologist. I've been working and living for the past 30 years here in Boulder, Colorado. For the past 11 years, my work has focused on helping people who have experienced personal trauma. Now, as we know, the horrors of what happened on 9/11 were televised all over the world, and they were televised, in fact, live. We witnessed the deaths of almost 3,000 of our fellow Americans. We know this had a very severe and traumatic impact on a large majority of the population. I myself cried for weeks after September 11th. A friend of mine who is a psychologist in practice here in Boulder said that her caseload increased tremendously after 9/11, and people that she hadn't seen in 10 years were coming back into her practice. So I think it's safe to say that collectively as a nation, because of what happened on September 11th, we experienced trauma.
I'm Fran Schor, and I have a master's degree from the University of Colorado. I've had a private practice as a psychotherapist and as a licensed professional counselor for about 20 years. Why do people resist this information? The information that shows that the official story about 9/11 cannot be true. What I've learned is that as humans, each of us have a worldview, and that worldview is usually formed in great part by the culture we grow up in. When we hear information that contradicts our worldview, social psychologists call the resulting insecurity cognitive dissonance. For example, with 9/11, we have one cognition, which is what the official story of 9/11, what our government told us, what our media repeated to us over and over, that 19 Muslims attacked us. On the other hand, we have what scientists, researchers, architects, engineers are now beginning to tell us, which is that there is evidence that shows that the official story cannot be true. So now we've lost our sense of security. We are starting to feel vulnerable. Now we're confused.
9/11 Truth challenges some of our most fundamental beliefs
about our government and about our country. When your beliefs are challenged or when two beliefs are inconsistent, cognitive dissonance is created. 9/11 truth challenges the beliefs that our country protects us and keeps us safe and that America is the good guy. My name is Bob Hopper, and I have a PhD in clinical psychology from the University of Cincinnati. For the past 29 years, I've been a licensed PhD clinical psychologist in Boulder, Colorado. When your beliefs are challenged, fear and anxiety are created. In response to that, our psychological defenses kick in, and they protect us from these emotions. Denial, which is probably the most primitive psychological defense, is the one most likely to kick in when our beliefs are challenged.
I'm Danielle Dupré, PhD, originally from Switzerland, where I studied psychology and psychoanalysis. For the past 15 years, I've been empowering people who have experienced significant trauma. America is a powerful nation. It has never been attacked. We were confident, we felt secure, and all of a sudden that security collapsed. People started to be fearful. With all those rumors, those news, people didn't know what to think about. And it's a very, very uncomfortable state to be in. And eventually our mind shuts off. Just like when a computer is overloaded, our minds get overloaded. We can't handle it anymore and we shut down. It's easier to deny it and move on with our lives.
What some of us will tend to do is deny the evidence that's coming our way and stick to the original story, the official story, and to try to regain our equilibrium in that way. Another thing we can do is decide to look at the conflicting evidence and be sincere and be open-minded and look at both sides of the issue and then make up our own mind about what reality is. I'm Dorothy Lorig. I have a master's degree in counseling psychology from the University of Colorado, and I've been practicing reevaluation counseling for over 16 years. If we can think of our worldview as being sort of our mental and emotional home, I think all of us will do just about anything to defend our homes, to defend our families, and so I see that with people, and I saw that with myself when my brother tried to talk with me about it, of don't mess with me, don't mess with my home, don't mess with my comfort with how things are. And about a week later, I read a lengthy article by Professor Griffin about why he believes the official account of 9/11 cannot be true. And it was a very well-researched article. I was in my office at the time. I sat there and I felt my stomach churning. I thought maybe I was going to be sick. And I leaped out of my chair and ran out the door and took a long walk around the block, around several blocks, and just broke down. I understand now that what was happening was my worldview about my government being in some way my protector, almost like a parent, had been dashed, and it was like being cast out into the wilderness, I think is the closest way to describe that feeling. And I sobbed, felt like the ground had completely disappeared beneath my feet, and I knew at some point during the walk that I knew that I was going to have to become active in educating other people about this, that for me to retain any sense of integrity, I was going to have to take some action. I couldn't just let something like this go.
Many people respond to these truths in a very deep way. Some have a visceral reaction like they've been punched in the stomach. To begin to accept the possibility that the government was involved is like opening Pandora's box. If you open the lid and peek in a little bit, it's going to challenge some of your fundamental beliefs about the world.
Well, here are a few of those spontaneous initial reactions to hearing the contradictory evidence about 9/11.
I don't want to know the truth, or I'd become too negative and psychologically go downhill. I'm not sure I want to know. If this is true, then up would be down and down would be up. My life would never be the same.
Fran, I refuse to believe that many Americans could be that treasonous. Someone would have talked. But these are beliefs. They are not scientific facts. But these beliefs do keep us from looking at the empirical evidence.
I'm David Ray Griffin. I taught philosophy of religion and theology at the Claremont School of Theology and Claremont Graduate University. I published about 35 books in my field, but then starting in 2004, I started publishing about 9/11, and since that time I have published 10 books about 9/11. You have empirical people who will simply say, look at the evidence, and if it's convincing, I will change my mind. Other people are paradigmatic people. They have a paradigm. They say, this is the way the world works, and I'm convinced this is the right way the world works. 9/11 doesn't fit into that paradigm. So I don't need to look at the evidence. It's paradigmatic. And then there is a third type of person that we often call wishful thinkers. I call it wishful and fearful thinking. So they simply will not believe something that they fear to be the truth. And I found that maybe to be the most powerful factor of people rejecting 9/11 truth and not even entertaining the evidence.
So whenever we say, I refuse to believe, we can be sure that the evidence that's coming our way is not bearable and that it's conflicting with our worldview much too much.
Denial protects people from this kind of anxiety.
As I thought about all of these responses, I realized that what is common to every one of them is the emotion of fear. People are afraid of being ostracized, they're afraid of being alienated, they're afraid of being shunned, they're afraid of their lives being inconvenienced, they'd have to change their lives, they're afraid of being confused, they're afraid of psychological deterioration, they're afraid of feeling helpless and vulnerable. And they're afraid that they won't be able to handle the feelings that are coming up. None of us want to feel helpless and vulnerable. So we want to defend ourselves. And the way we often do that is with anger. So then we become angry. And when we become angry, then we become indignant. We become offended. We want to ridicule the messenger. We want to pathologize the messenger. And we want to censor the messenger.
So how can we overcome this resistance and denial? The first thing is to meet people where they're at.
One thing is that we need to raise people's awareness about this through what I would call gentle dialogue and gentle questioning. My name is John Freedom. I'm a counselor in private practice here in Tucson, Arizona, where I've been for the past 20 years. I hold a master's level certification in NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. So it doesn't work to challenge people's belief or immediately tell them, I know the truth about 9/11, but a good way is to ask questions, ask open-ended questions, and lead them into a dialogue and discussion about it.
Healing comes through facing the truth, experiencing it, allowing the feelings to come in, so that if there are feelings of fear that perhaps these events were caused by something that we haven't thought about yet, dark elements within our society, for example, we'll let that come in and explore it. Let the light shine on whatever happened. This will be the most healing process. The Germans did this after their war. The South Africans did this after apartheid. Reconciliation through the truth is what is a deep path to psychological recovery from the myths and lies around which this historic event has been cloaked in the official view. I am Professor William Woodward. I'm trained in the history of science with a PhD. I also have a master's in experimental psychology. I've edited 4 books and published well over 20 peer-reviewed papers. I've taught for 35 years at a state university, the University of New Hampshire. I think as a psychologist, to overcome our fear of the traumatic event, with new information would be the best, healthiest route to our collective recovery from the trauma of 9/11. That, by the way, is a psychotherapeutic insight that to gradually uncover the truth in your own life, the sources of anxiety, to make them conscious, is the royal road to recovery.
One of the ways to deal with the trauma is to find the answers. That's why I think it is of such importance to have a comprehensive investigation.
To work together to expose what happened, regardless of where the evidence takes us. That's what we expect in our state government, law enforcement. I think that by putting science together with the law, we will have a psychological healing around the impossible cognition that has been produced on that day.
I believe that to be the kind of country that we think we are, we have to face some of the things that are not as we think they are. I'm Robert Griffin. I am a licensed psychologist practicing in Pennsylvania for 25 years. I am a member of Psychologists for Social Responsibility, and I am past president of the Northeastern Pennsylvania Psychological Association. After World War II, part of the way that Jewish people honored the dead was by making sure that the truth was known and that the value of these people was respected. Not pursuing the truth about 9/11 disrespects the value of the life of the people that died. Thinking that we're above such things, that it could happen in other countries, but it couldn't happen here, that's a lack of humility, and that's excessive pride. And so not being able to see our dark side or our weaknesses is the most dangerous thing.
The observation that pride is one of the basic human flaws is absolutely correct. This is especially true for Americans because we for a long time looked at other nations and say, oh, they're in such bad shape, but luckily we don't have those problems. We don't have leaders who would do those things that were done in the Soviet Union or done in Germany or done in Japan and on down the list. So this is a type of pride that Americans have. A feature of American history that makes us particularly liable to this pride is this notion that's called exceptionalism, that America is the exceptional nation. And that began from the beginning as this country was formed. The people would say, well, there was so much evil in the European countries, so much cheating, so much lying, so much using the people for the ruler's purposes, but not in America. We have leaders that are free from those sins. So I think this has made 9/11 particularly difficult for Americans.
Anyone can make mistakes, but our ideals and our principles get us back, on track.
This is one of the defining issues of our time.
So we need to understand that questioning is patriotic. Questioning is what we're supposed to do as citizens. That's our duty.
When we come to the national level, when something like 9/11 happens, we need to be sure that we have a real investigation into who the perpetrators are, and then we need to be sure that those perpetrators are held legally accountable. It's part of the healing process on the individual level as on the collective level. We need the truth in order to heal.
very good. So a lot of really good information there, and psychologically you can see, this is what's going on with people. And if you're out talking to others about the 9/11 issue, most likely you're running into these exact same issues that they're talking about. People are thinking these ways because it's just common nature. It's psychology. It's what's going on in people's heads. So, all right, I want to switch gears. I got two more quick things before we get to our meditation here. Now, this one's kind of funny. It's a short clip here. This is from the debates last night, but it's not Ron Paul. This is Rick Perry. And just to go and show you what, the clowns that they put out there and they try to promote as being the top of their game. Listen to this and you tell me if this guy is at the top of his game.
And I will tell you, it's three agencies of government when I get there that are gone. Commerce, education, and the, what's the third one there? Let's see. Oh, five. Okay. So commerce, education, and the EPA? EPA. There you go. No, okay.
Let's talk deposition.
Seriously? Is EPA the one you were talking about? Or?
No, sir. No, sir. We were talking about the agencies of government. EPA needs to be rebuilt.
But
There's no doubt about that.
But you can't name the third one?
The third agency of government, yeah. I would do away with the education, commerce, and let's see. I can't. The third one I can't. Sorry. Oops.
Oops, you couldn't think of the third one. That's kind of funny, don't you think? Kind of funny. And that's the guy that they're putting out there saying, this guy has the answers. This is the choice that they want to have. And, you listen to Fox News and the mainstream medias, and this is the guy. But he can't remember what his plan is. Right. All right. This is last thing. Then we're going to jump to our meditation for today. Well, yeah. This is another message from Anonymous. Here we go. This is to the Oakland Police.
Greetings, citizens of the world. This is a message from the crew of the Huntress to the police officers and city officials of Oakland. You have gained our attention. We have seen your actions on the protesters of Oakland and find it absolutely appalling. We have no ultimatums to give or demands to make. We are way past that stage now. We have changed course, and Oakland, we are headed your way. You will all regret the day you decided to use force to subdue the protesters' freedom of speech and right to assemble. This is a right given to us by our Creator, and you have no right to subdue it. Our actions will be swift and without regret. Oakland, you should have expected us.
We are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. We are the resistance. Expect us.
Okay. So, there you go. We got Anonymous stepping up. And the very last thing, just to remind you, is this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Tomorrow's 11/11/11. We have at the Sheraton Gateway Hotel in Los Angeles the Crystal Skull World Ceremonies Gateway. And this is taking place, and there's going to be a lot of stuff going on there. Mayan elders are going to be there. They've been on a pilgrimage across the country with these 13 crystal skulls, so you're going to get a chance to see them over there. Now, they say that this event, tickets are about sold out or almost all sold out online, and so you're going to need to show up in person to be able to get in. So if you want more information on that, you can just look it up, Crystal Skull Gateway, Los Angeles, this weekend. All right? There you go. Now, let us bring ourselves into our meditation for today. All right, my friends, go ahead and close your eyes and relax. I want you to imagine that you are on a boat in the river, paddling downstream. And as you are paddling, the boat, you find that the currents challenge you, and you have to paddle a little bit harder. And you paddle harder, and you make a little progress, but then the currents push you back a bit. And you see another boat out there. And somebody else is trying to do the same thing. Trying to paddle upstream against the current. And it becomes challenging. And then you see another, and another. And there are a lot of folks paddling against the current, trying to get upstream. And eventually you all tire of doing this. So you just let go, and you allow the boat to go with the flow that it is naturally taking you on. And you travel, and the boat goes down a little drop off, and it flows into a nice pool, nice resting point where the water is calm. It continues out the other end, but this is the place where you can get out of the boat. And this resting place here, there are trees. See the birds singing. The grass all around is green. There's fruit growing from the trees. And it's a place to rest. So you get out of the boat, and everybody gathers together around the shore, and you all realize sometimes it's important just to let go and go with the flow. Go with the direction that Spirit is taking you. Listen to the ways that nature is moving you. And as you do, you are guided to a place of calm and safety. And as you all gather there on the shore, you look to the sky and give thanks to the great Creator for helping you to understand this lesson. And imagine that everyone now holds hands, and simultaneously everyone is activating their chakras, which are the energy centers in your body. The 7 chakras which coordinate as the 7 seals in the book of Revelation. And you know that by opening these chakras, you open up the energy centers that you have available to you, given to you from the Creator. So you start at the bottom of the spine, and you open up the red color chakra, and you allow the energy to fill into that chakra. And then from there, the energy moves up to the chakra above it, to the orange color chakra, which is right at the belly button area. And you raise the energy up higher to the chakra above it, to the solar plexus. Imagine the color yellow just below the rib cage. And then the energy continues up to the heart chakra. You imagine the color green. And up to the throat chakra, where you imagine the color blue. To the third eye, imagine the color violet. And finally, to the top of your head, imagine the color indigo, and the light continues up into the cosmos. And you feel this connection, and as you all feel the connection, you realize that the enlightened masters on this planet have all gone through this process of activation within themselves. From Jesus to Krishna to Buddha to Gandhi to Muhammad and many, many others. They understood the nature of opening the 7 seals and activating the energetic centers in the body. And they understood by doing so allows them to be connected to all that is, all that was, and all that ever shall be. And as you all stand there holding hands, you imagine that you are standing not only with yourselves, but in your presence are all of these enlightened masters that are living in dimensions unseen at this moment, but nonetheless existing simultaneously where you are right now. And let's just now send love down into the planet Earth, up into the cosmos, and let's think a good thought of everyone for the day. Wish everybody a good day, peaceful blessings. And as we do so, let's bring our energy and attention back to the present moment. We'll do so on the count of 3. 3, coming back to the present moment filled with confidence. 2, coming back to the present moment filled with faith. And 1, coming back to the present moment happy, healthy, and whole. Happy, healthy, and whole. And there you have it, my friends. That is our show, our prayer, and our meditation. I hope you enjoyed the information. If you need to re-listen to it, the show is available every day, firstcontactradio.com. We also have our playlist there at YouTube, so the videos that you heard part of the show, you can just go and watch those individually as well. Spread the word, my friends. Spread the word, peace and love, because that is what is going to get us through all of these challenging times ahead. Because challenging times are only challenging when we allow them to be, when we stay separated from each other. But when we all join together in unity, we find that we're able to overcome all the problems that are facing us. By unity, I'm not talking about a one world order or a one world government or anything of that nature. I'm talking about the unity of spirit that is inherent in each and every one. That is the unity. That is the most important. We are all one under the great Creator, and that will never change. For Dirk Bradshaw, my name's Josh Poet. I'll be back tomorrow with more news and information. Till then, be safe. Peace. I'm out of here.